Sacred geometry, bringing order into your cells and your life. And we did the first part yesterday, and it's interesting that I'm back in Athens and the sacred geometry is so alive here and vibrant. And it was interesting. I was guided to be here at this specific moment to bring this in. And last night and the night before, it's a beautiful tradition they have in Greece for Easter is that they light the candle in Istanbul and they bring it by flight to the airport in Athens, and then they spread it to all the planes going to all the locations around Greece. And they light this candle, and from that one candle, everybody lights their candle. So it was so beautiful. I was there the other night and I went up with my candles, and it was interesting how the whole city came alive, and you can see it that all the candles are starting to, the candle arrived and then it starts spreading through the city. And then everybody starts lighting each other's candles. And it was interesting how I was called, or a young girl was called to me, and she lit my candle. So it really represents that. For me, it was very symbolic that this girl came because it represented the inner child's innocence and purity, and that we need the inner child in the system. And it is, what are we without our essence? And in the sacred geometry, for example, this is just physical form. It's like my physical body. It's nothing without spirit inside and alive within it. And once you take away the spirit, the body just breaks down into dust. So it's very, very powerful to be here and to see that ceremony taking place. We're all from different religions, different backgrounds, different belief systems, but every religion has different keys. And I felt this was a very, very symbolic key to see in physical form that everybody's lighting each other's candles. And that is the work we're doing, is that spirit becomes alive. And then we ignite by inspiring, by teaching, by sharing the essence of what awakens in us then spreads into our genetics, our ancestors, to our children, to our siblings, to the community, to the collective, to the universe. So one candle can change the whole system. One candle lit up the whole of Greece. So this is really, really symbolic, I feel, and very important to remember. It's interesting how I've been guided with the sacred geometry. I was guided to bring it in a way that was, not overwhelming, but also not interfering in people's belief systems. So for me, how I'm bringing in the sacred geometry, it's interesting. I got a little bit overwhelmed with all the information when when I was told to bring in the sacred geometry, because there's so many traditions and so many wisdom from all different backgrounds and all parts of the world has a lot of information. So when I went to teach it yesterday, I was told to stop, to bring it in more energetically and let you have your experience. And that is how I've always been teaching, or was guided to teach, was to allow you to have the experience without the mind capturing the knowledge. And so what I'm doing in this webinar is opening it up and remembering and activating it on a remembrance level, a cellular level, a blood level. So this affects your blood. Because this is in your blood, this is in your system. So how is it working for you? What is it doing to you? And this is what is very interesting. When you let go, the sacred geometry you realize is in you already, but it starts taking over your system. And then the cells get stronger, your spirit gets stronger, your physical vessel gets stronger, and spirit ignites within these structures. And then something else takes over the system, and it's your spirit. It's your spirit and the divine intelligence within you. So it's very interesting when you really bring up with intention the sacred geometry and work with the sacred geometry, or sketch out. It's very interesting to have the experience to draw and sketch out the sacred geometry and bring it alive, because it really brings it alive when you do it with your own hand, free will. So the free will of the universe, of your free will, everybody's free will, is part of the universal laws. and balance. So this will start bringing balance into your life, wholeness, health into your life, cellular healing. Also, I've been guided to start working with the Epstein-Barr virus because it's very in the collective, very strong. So I started to work on that. I'm going to go much further later with it. I'm not fully in it yet, but in this work, it's really helping the cells to ground and the cells to heal. Because if you go back into spirit as whole, and then if you allow spirit to reconnect with the building blocks of life itself by working with the sacred geometry, then you start the divine order takes over the system. So it's very, very impressive and very strong when you remember and you open up this guidance. So I'm very excited about the work last night, what's happened in my system, and I can feel it in everybody and the feedback I'm getting on Telegram as well. It's really impressive to hear your version. And what's so beautiful is I was told not to say what each is for and let you have your own experience. And it's beautiful to read everyone's experience of different sacred geometry and what is it doing to your system? How is it holding your system? How's it showing up in your system? So this is really, really beautiful. And yeah, I feel very grateful to be here in Athens at this time, bringing this in and going to the ancient sites and walking around the ancient sites in the evening is really opening it up because they used this information consciously and they used it in the architecture, they used it in the art, they used it for healing, they used it in every part because it is the building blocks of creation itself, the foundation of life. So this evening, I'm going to go much stronger. And it's interesting, another key which came in, I was told to go to a Pacific. I always go back to a certain lady here in Athens who's got a crystal store. And when I was there, I was drawn, after getting all the different sacred geometry, I was drawn to get a meteorite. And it's interesting, when I was in Egypt, at the top of the pyramids, they always have the meteorite. In Mecca, they always have the meteorite. Okay, because the meteorite and most sacred sites, you'll always find a meteorite, is spirit. It reminds me of my spirit coming directly to earth untouched. So the meteorite is pure. Okay, it got burned in the way, but it's landed direct from the heavens. We've landed direct from the heavens. It's different than the crystals. So the meteorite is direct from the heavens, direct from God, as you are. We are stardust, but we're straight from heaven. So our spirit came straight from the heavens. So I find the meteorite is a great reminder and grounds my system. So I'm very excited to move forward this evening. I'm going to work with the Tree of Life and activate it within the system, and then you'll see what it will do to you. And you'll see what the meteorite will do to you. You will see what everything is doing to you in the system. It's beautiful. And it's so basic and it's so normal because it is the foundation of life itself. And if you have not integrated the system, I know I had a lot of resistance when this, even in the advertisement, I didn't want it in the advertisement. So it's like, for me, I realized that I had got issues with grounding still in my system. So that's why I didn't want to connect. And I wanted something completely different. So it was interesting how this was a major key for me in the system to ground the blood, to ground my cells, to ground the nervous system. And then also what came up very strong in the webinar yesterday, and I'm going to go more into it, is that modification, genetic modification, for example, in the DNA, where man came in and changed the DNA or changed the cells through food or products, you can bring it back in order. It's like the phantom limb, if the arm is cut off or finger is cut off, the soul is still there. And it's the same with the DNA. So if your DNA was altered in any way, you can reset it back to God's fingerprint because your phantom DNA, the blueprint of God's DNA, is still there. And then when you work with the Platonic structure, then that brings it all back into order physically as well. So it's cellular healing, physical healing, which I'm working with, which will then bring all the cells back into balance. This series is about cellular health. I'm going to go further and further deeper into cellular health because I believe in this. I believe the epigenetic, if you work with the epigenetic work, and what's happening is the sacred geometry is giving us the power to go deeper into the system without fragmenting. So what I'm noticing in last night's webinar is that we can clear extremely heavy topics very fast without barely noticing it's happening. Whereas, and the systems are solid. So it makes our systems solid. So it'll be interesting to see what happens after tonight's webinar when the tree of life is fully set up in your system and active, and see how you handle life after that. Very curious to see how you're going to handle life after this webinar, because you've got a structure which is solid, a house that is solid, a house with walls and a good foundation and a good roof. So this is something that's very, very important. Also, feminine masculine is very important in the system. So the collective is trying to smash the feminine masculine, and then you smash the polarities. You can't change it. North and South Pole, feminine masculine, is the foundation of life. It's like yin yang, it's the polarities. It is creation. So man tries to make you think it's not, it's something that is different through different programming that's going on in the collective level. But we have to go back to basics. North and South Pole, you cannot change. Feminine masculine, you cannot change. It is what it is. And you need the two to move within the DNA. The system moves, the spirals move. So the universe is moving within you, the cells are moving within you. You cannot take this away and call it something else. If you call it something else, you're coming out of your essence and you're going into a man-made thought form. So go back to nature, go back into your system. And this, I realized, was bringing in the truth. So what this webinar is doing and the sacred geometry is doing to your system, I notice, is that it's the gateway of releasing the false gods. There's a lot of false gods in the system at the moment, and it's going back into your truth, going back into the absolute truth, supreme intelligence of the absolute truth within you. And all the false teachings and all the false gods just fall away immediately in the system. So for me, this is really, really key, this webinar, for moving forward and letting all that programming out of your system and illusions and fears. And yeah, mass manipulation, go to dust. Go back to your essence, go back to your simplicity of creation, which is the foundation of life, which creates, this plant, the leaf here. What creates the leaf? The same thing has created my skin, my organs, my heart, my cells. Go back to basics. It's inside you already. And the sacred geometry is definitely a key for remembering and bringing things back in order. So if you want to be part of this webinar, if you're not, first of all, everyone who's part of it, thank you. It's an amazing journey, and thank you for all the sharing and feedback. And then anyone who wasn't there last night, you can watch this webinar and enter it at any stage at your convenience. I have an academy on the website with different levels of consciousness. It's a journey, it's an experience, and it awakens different information within us. So each webinar is bringing in different levels of consciousness to rebuild our system and bring everything back into alignment. This one is the building blocks of life, the sacred geometry. And yeah, so the recordings are there from yesterday, and I'll see you all later. And yeah, what a beautiful time to be here. And this is a really special work that's come true. I'm really, really grateful Spirit has guided me to do it, and especially here in Athens. Very special. Thank you, everyone. Have a beautiful Easter, and maybe I'll see you later at the webinar. Thank you.